Saul LeWitt. He is an American artist. He was born in 1928. He was linked to various movements, including conceptual art and minimalism. And a lot of his work was based on the idea that the concept is the most important aspect of the work. Before him, everyone thought that the work of art was more important than the process or the idea behind it. LeWitt would plan out all of his works before a single drop of paint was ever applied. This is the main piece that attracted me to Saul LeWitt, his brushstrokes in 1995. Saul hated the idea of being a celebrity. He hated the idea of being an artist, and whenever possible, he would avoid the limelight. There was actually one time where a photographer, intent on establishing his artist and celebrity status, asked for pictures, so he sent them pictures of his dog rather than of himself. He stayed home from parties, he worked on his art, and he just created. He would use a lot of newer up-and-coming artists for the installations of his wall drawing series. He would kind of create in the same manner as a composer or an architect. Plans were constructed and were then to be followed, and his work was done once the plans were in the hands of the assistants.
Saul made his working drawings sitting at that desk. So oftentimes he'd come in the morning, he had a phone behind him, which is now gone, and he might be sitting at his desk with his tools making drawings of the type that we just saw on the bulletin board, the plans for his wall drawings and structures.
But then every day he sort of had hands-on without instructing others, and that was working on the gouaches.
Saul was very, very prolific. He made hundreds of works of art a year. I remember one summer we got 260 gouaches, came in on a container in the fall, all that he had made in the summer.
Everybody has a little different way they work about it, but the main thing is to create a fairly even gradation. And
it's important to know that Saul always worked in his studio. Many people have a perception of him that because he gave instructions to his wall drawing assistants and they would execute his drawings on the walls of museums and galleries, people often assume that he didn't actually do work himself, but he worked every day, 6 or 7 days a week in his studio, and he made all the plans, drew all the plans for the wall drawings that he would give to his assistants, all the plans for fabrications for his structures, and he also made gouaches.
That you need to scribble is something that is developed as you go. It's like you're working out a muscle. This is like artist boot camp, if you want to call it that. Your mind develops as you scribble, to where your hand becomes intuitive and it's already going for the problem areas. And when you hit that level, it really is a joy to scribble.
I was developing some renderings for scribble drawings that he was doing, and we had a discussion about how he wanted them to look kind of like this, and I would take his sketch that he would fax me and then convert it to this, and then this is what the real piece looked like when it was in the museum.
I don't think that I have become comfortable enough in what laying a mark down on the wall does to the gradation, and so right now I am focusing constantly and trying not to get lost, because I think I'm nervous about making a mistake.
As you can see, it's mostly about the idea of the artwork rather than just the artwork itself. So Saul LeWitt, because he was so specific about his wall drawings, someone went through and wrote out instructions into code, which then allows you to run, because of he has this grid and this these instructions, right? 6-inch grid covering the walls, and then he has red lines and blue lines and yellow lines and red lines and these different locations, but they're all in random points to sections on this grid. So you can see, you know, this red line is tracking all the way down here. This line is going from the, you know, that section and then to right there. Another line right over here to there. But you can play around with it. I'll include the link in the description. But it's pretty interesting because you can increase the number of lines. You have just a few. You can rerun it and just have different, you know, different grid, etc. But it's pretty neat. The artist who created the website then goes on to talk about the artistry of whether or not it makes sense to have done this with a computer or not versus using a human, because Saul did actually like a little bit of the human error element, because he was saying that everyone draws a line a little bit differently. Saul was an absolute workhorse of an artist. As you can see, he did a number of different works for each series that he did. In my notes here, I have that he has done more than 1,250 wall drawings, hundreds of structures, which is sculpture art, largely based around like open cubes, and a whole bunch of gouaches in his later in life. But yeah, he's basically taken each idea and then kind of fleshing it out among these different thoughts. Those cubes.